following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Wanna take a ride? Broadcasting from the sprawling outskirts of the Florida Everglades in the intellectual wilderness of South Florida, the outer regions of humanity that people move to just because it doesn't snow. This is the Nicole Sandler Show.
Well, we made it to a Friday. And again, every week at this point, I think it's a feat of great strength, the fact that we've made it this far. Then again, we may, we've made it this far. Unfortunately, for Donald Trump, he may not make it so much longer. But that would be okay. It is Friday. There's a lot going on, a lot to tell you about. But as we are wont to do, we like to start off the show with a bit of humor. I certainly can use it today. To be honest with you, I'm in a foul mood. I've been having car problems. And so I had to deal with the car this morning. And that's never fun. So, anyway. Hopefully this will help put me in a better mood. And tonight I'm going to see Randy Rainbow. And I hate having being in a shitty mood when I'm going to see a fun show like this. So hopefully we'll get through this together and my mood will turn around. Okay. And this will help. So this one I'm going to set up because so many of you guys, well, you may not know, and it takes a second to understand. There's a guy named Jonathan Pie. He's a Brit. He's over there in Great Britain. And his comedy, what he does is he's a stand-up news reporter. So basically he's on location, usually in front of Parliament or Buckingham Palace or something. And he does a setup for a live shot, like he's doing a live shot, and he does a setup for a pre-recorded piece. So when they first go to him, it's him doing the on-camera professional news guy, right? The reporter on the scene. And then, they break and they go to the videotape, and he starts ranting, I guess, to the cameraman who's there with him. And then at the end, when they're going back to the television, he comes back out and becomes the reporter again. So that's the setup for this. So with no further ado, let's take it away, Jonathan Pie.
This hastily agreed ceasefire comes after the House of Representatives formally condemned Trump's Syria withdrawal by a vote of 354 to 60, including over 100 Republicans in the House. Here's the latest. It's difficult to know which is Trump's moment of the week, really, isn't it? Betraying his allies in the fight against ISIS or hosting next year's G7 meeting at one of his golf resorts. He doesn't give a fuck. Does he? He doesn't give a shit. It's actually quite impressive. Insane, but impressive. But, he does it anyway, because, let's face it, he's the fucking president, isn't he? What are you going to do? 3 years of getting away with this shit, and no one can stop him. Clearly, because he's still fucking there. No one's got him yet, and the other side still haven't got their shit together. It's a fucking embarrassment. They still don't know if they have anyone who can beat Donald Trump. So he just carries on spouting nonsense and racist dog whistles and non sequiturs and half-finished, whether it be condemning thousands of his own allies to death or deciding to become the next Cilla Black. You've never met the killer of your teenage son. Well, surprise, surprise, she's in the next room with a load of press photographers. Surprise, surprise. This is how Donald Trump thinks the world works. It's a TV show. This is how his brain works. He thought that was a good idea. 2 grieving parents, you say, and a major diplomatic row with our closest ally. Let's have a photo op. Hashtag sad. He's an ideas guy. He's full of them. He's full of them. Nuking tornadoes, locking up brown children in cages, arming teachers. Like he says himself, his is a great and unmatched wisdom. He's the Wizard of fucking Oz. especially when it comes to foreign policy. You know, probably not the first president to start a war by running away, but he is the first president to condemn thousands of his own allies to death while sat taking a dump and fucking about on Twitter. Fuck 'em. They didn't help us in Normandy, did they? And where were they during the American Revolution? Fuck 'em. He didn't even give the Kurds the courtesy of a fucking heads up. Guys, you're about to get slaughtered. I'll give you to the count of 10. What a bastard. What a bastard. A man who would rather listen to Fox News than his generals. A commander-in-chief whose own state and defense departments call it a disaster for regional stability and the fight against Islamist extremism, whilst Trump called the decision strategically brilliant, claiming this hastily begged for ceasefire was the plan all along. Bullshit. It is strategically brilliant for Vladimir Putin. Why does Trump prefer to help his enemies rather than his allies? Who gives a shit if thousands of ISIS fighters are let back out into the world? Because they'll just be heading to Europe. Who gives a shit? He treats his allies like shit. Whereas Putin, Erdogan, ISIS are continually rewarded. Not forgetting Kim Jong-un, a brutal dictator to whom Trump seems to enjoy giving a sloppy blowjob once every 6 months. And now he's thanked Erdogan and called this a great day for civilization. Watch this space civilization, because what we're about to witness is nothing short of US state-sanctioned ethnic cleansing. Behold his great and unmatched wisdom. Thank you. Well, back in Washington, it was business as usual as the president and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, traded insults over a photo.
Oh, Jonathan Pye. Yeah, you know what? He's really funny. He's really funny. But that made me even angrier than I already am. Oh, my God, I need to take a deep breath. All right, I've got a Randy Rainbow song on standby for later in case we need it. Yes, he calls him Putin. I love that British accent. I can't do a British accent, but he's so funny. And he's angry. Somebody should do that over here. Do the Jonathan Pye act. Do stand-up wraparounds and scream and rant and rave. And usually his rants are about Parliament and Boris fucking Johnson and Theresa fucking May and fucking Brexit. But today he went off on Donald Trump, which of course was needed. And bring it on. Oh, my goodness. And just when you think things can't get any crazier, here we are. It's the 18th of October. Oh, my goodness. All right, so let me tell you what's going on today. I actually had a reporter, a guy who writes for Newsweek, James Laporta, booked, because he's been breaking a lot of stuff about what's going on in Syria. In fact, before he joined Newsweek, he was in the military, and because of his experience in the military and as a journalist, he's been hired by NBC to be the war consultant on the TV show This Is Us. I really loved This Is Us. I haven't seen this week's episode yet, but it's very, very well done. And James Laporta is a really good journalist. Anyway, so I contacted him earlier in the week when I saw some of his stories dealing with what's happening in Syria with the Turks and the Kurds and the insanity over there. And so I invited him to join us on the show today. And he wrote back, he said, I'd love to. I got to check with Newsweek and NBC. Well, here we are. It's 4 days later. He still hasn't heard back from them. So we will not have James Laporta today. Maybe he'll join us sometime in the future. But we do have for you today are a couple of candidates who are running for Congress. A little later, we're going to hear from Jason Butler, who's running in North Carolina's 2nd district. He was endorsed by Howie Klein in the Blue America PAC. Howie introduced me to him. He looks like a great candidate. We'll talk with him in a few minutes. Actually, I taped it with him yesterday morning, and I was going to run the interview before Howie came on yesterday. But there was just so much news going on that I didn't have time to get to him. So if time permits, we'll get to him later in this hour. But first, you and I are going to meet our first guest together. All I know about her is her name and that she has courageously stepped up to run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz Yes. Now, Florida's 23rd. I'm in Florida's 22nd. So she's the next district over from me. Thankfully, I don't. I don't have to vote for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Not that I would. So anyway, Jen Perlman has stepped up and is running. I think we've got her on the line. Jen, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. Jen Perlman challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz for her seat in Congress representing Florida's 23rd district. You can find Jen's website, jen2020.com. Follow her on Twitter at JenFL23. Hey, Jen, thank you so much. When did you decide to run?
Actually, this has been something we have been talking about, my partner and I, since I would say back in January, that we had started thinking about that this was an opportunity and just getting a feel for what's going on in the district. And I started going around to organizations and meetings and talking with people and just getting an idea of if this would be a good opportunity or not.
Now, you live in the district, obviously, and I'm pointing that out because in Florida, it's actually not a requirement. In fact, a few years back, I live in the 22nd district. I'm up the road in Coral Springs.
Right.
When, for some horrible reason, Alan West was the congressman from my district. He actually lived outside of the district. He didn't live here. So it's not a requirement in Florida, but you do live in the district. You've lived there for a long time. So Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been your representative.
For 15 years.
Ooh.
She's been my representative for 15 years. And before that, she was my Florida legislator.
That's right, because she was in the Florida Assembly before that. And you know what? I was here back then as well. Again, I didn't live in that district, but I've known Debbie for many years, having done political talk radio in South Florida. I've had many opportunities to speak with her. So I know her. I also know Tim Canova, who during the last two elections ran against her, ran a great campaign, and had a hard time of it. You're familiar with Tim Canova? I think you were a supporter of his.
Yeah, actually, I was a volunteer on his campaign in 2016, and I hosted his very first meet and greet. Was at my house.
Wow. Well, that's
so I'm very familiar with him, and I'm very familiar with what happened in 2016 with our supervisor of elections and the shenanigans that go on here. Yeah, painfully familiar.
Here being Broward County, which has always had problems. And in fact, the supervisor elections was Brenda Snipes. She's now out of a job, was unceremoniously booted from that job by the current governor, which is, I'm not saying he did the right thing, but she didn't belong in that job anyway. Do we have a decent supervisor of elections now? Who is in the job now? Do we know?
Yes. The man's name is Pete Antonacci, and he's a Republican, and he was appointed by Rick Scott, and he actually wasn't sure whether or not he would be retained by Ron DeSantis, but he has been. And I've met Pete a few times, and I actually find him to be quite competent. And I actually think that him being there is infinitely more beneficial for me than having a friend of Debbie's being in that office. So to me, I actually prefer having a Republican appointee there than someone who's friends with Debbie.
Yeah, well, I understand that, and therein lies the problem. Look, on the national level, I have issues with the way the DNC treats candidates in a primary. Now, the DCCC is the group that runs. It's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and they're responsible for House races. And the chair of that group is Sherry Bustos, who issued a directive a few months back and said anybody who decides to primary an incumbent, we will not work with them. And in fact, any vendors who work with them, consultants, campaign staff and such, will be blackballed by the Democratic Party. Have you run into this issue? Has this been a problem for you?
Yeah, actually, I lost our first compliance officer when I call it the fatwa, came down from the DCCC. And yeah, it definitely has affected consultants and people that we would work with on a local level, for sure. And we've gone around it. We've ended up putting together a team of really great people. Like, I'm very happy with where we are right now, but it definitely affected us in the beginning.
Wow, that really sucks. I mean, to be blunt, it's just very undemocratic.
The Republicans are actually more Democratic than the Democrats.
Exactly. It's a sad.
They don't have super delegates. Mm-hmm. They don't. Yeah, I have a lot of my own issues with the Democratic Party. It's not. This is not like a love connection between me and them by any stretch. And actually, in 2016, after what happened with Bernie, I left. Mm-hmm. I exited the party.
Did you?
I actually reaffiliated in order to be able to do this.
I understand. And look, I grew up here in South Florida, but then I moved back I was born in New York, moved down here, went to, high school and college down here, went back to New York, went out to California, where I was always registered with no party affiliation because I don't like being, stuck to a party. Not that I ever voted Republican, but I wasn't happy with the way the Democrats run things, and even more so now. But here in Florida, I want to vote in the primaries, so I am reluctantly registered as a Democrat. Again, even though I'd never vote for a Republican, or let's say I haven't met one that I.
There's no other option here.
Yeah, exactly. So Jen Perlman, you threw your hat in the ring. I'm guessing Tim Canova's not running this time. He probably had enough of dealing with the party. In fact, last time he ran as an independent. He ran third party. So to not have to deal with the Democrats on their nonsense.
It's just not doable in this district.
It really
isn't.
The
numbers are just not there. No, the only way to beat her is in a primary.
Gotcha.
And that's why she's been sitting where she's been sitting for as long as she has,
That's right.
because we have a gerrymandered district with closed primaries.
If people could see the way the Florida's 23rd district is drawn, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
She's in Weston. She's in the town of Weston, Florida, which is just on the eastern edge of the Everglades, a little bit south of where I am. And then it sort of goes over, it encompasses Pembroke Pines, Davie, where you are. And then there's like a thin stretch that goes over to the beach and then down
to Surfside.
Down to Surfside, where all the rich Jews live, right?
Basically, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
by
I'm
design.
Jewish, so I can say it.
The entire South Florida congressional contingency have worked in tandem with each other, the red with the blue, to pick and choose bits of districts so that they could all be in safe seats. This is not news. Mario Diaz-Balart's the Republican in the district below us, and he worked very closely with Debbie this is why these are this way.
That's right. In fact, Debbie, and when she was the chair of the DNC, would not support a challenger to it used to be three Republicans in those districts. It was Mario Diaz-Balart, his brother Lincoln Diaz-Balart, and Ileana Ross-Lehtinen.
Yeah.
Right, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and at the time I think it was Kendrick Meek, who now he was in the district now represented by Frederica Wilson. They would not even think of campaigning for a Democratic challenger to go up against this Republican contingent because they were colleagues. Florida politics are ridiculous. So, Jen?
No, they help each other.
Yep.
It isn't about the colors.
No.
They don't act like that. I mean, I think that's definitely more the case on the state level and in the state legislature, where there is really this very big, huge Republican dominance in the state legislature. But as far as our congressional representation, they are all in it together.
Right.
To keep their safe seats and to keep closed primaries.
Without a doubt. They just want to preserve the status quo, which goes to Sherry Bustos's bullshit directive that, you can't run a primary. So many of our sitting members of Congress would not be in office if they didn't primary the then incumbent. That's politics. This is how it works.
And they'd rather.
It's insane. So thank you for primarying Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We need to get her out of Congress. Now let's talk a little bit about you. Your background is you're an attorney?
I am an attorney, and I actually switched to inactive for 10 years. I was home with my kids. And I just recently actually reactivated, and I'm doing criminal justice work and pro bono work returning citizens that are getting their rights restored to vote. And I'm working on a juvenile justice committee for the League of Women Voters. And so I'm kind of just sticking with the criminal justice scene right now.
Okay, cool. And on your website, gen2020.com, you, I could tell I like your positions Because you post them on there. You have a section called platform, and you outline where you stand on healthcare, environment, criminal justice, economic reform, education, military foreign affairs, state of Israel, civil rights, reparations, and campaign finance. And it's interesting when you go and look at some candidates' websites. Some of them just don't put anything about the issues because they don't want to have to go there. You're stepping out, and you are a progressive.
Yes, I'm definitely a progressive. There's probably more, like on a daily basis, I think of something like, oh, I should put that on our policy statement. You know, like there are so many things. And the hardest part of it actually was organizing it. Like there's someone will say something like, oh, you don't have something about this. I'm like, I do, but it's under this section because there's so much overlap.
Yes.
You know, so when you talk about things like income inequality, and if you look under where I have economic reform, there is stuff under there that might also be able to be somewhere else in another
Sure.
section, because there's so many things that overlap and are tied together.
Right. No issue is an island, as it were.
No, it's
Right.
all connected. I mean, and for me, my three biggest issues are Medicare for all, climate crisis, and criminal justice reform.
Okay.
But that's more about just what I think is most pressing right here, right now. But and that's the thing. Like somebody could say, well, what do you think about this? And generally speaking, I'm on the left. Like it's a safe bet that I'm over on the left.
And you feel free to say, I don't want to answer that. It's an acceptable answer or non-answer. You have a preferred candidate in the primary, presidential primary?
Yeah, I'm a Bernie girl.
I thought you were going to say that. I am too.
I'm a Bernie girl. Yeah.
I am too. I also like Elizabeth Warren, and I have a problem with some of the Bernie supporters who feel it's okay to smear her, and because I think she's our second best choice. And we know what an uphill climb it's going to be for Bernie. Just because we've been there before, we see how he's treated not only by the Democratic Party, but by the corporate media. It's going to be it's a battle. And my thought is, okay, Elizabeth Warren would be a bit of a compromise, but she's still, I think we'd be well served by her if we can't have Bernie. And I think Bernie would hop on board her train, as it were, and work with her. I think she's an ally, and I really have a problem with some of Bernie's supporters smearing her and trying to put a scorched earth policy into effect. Because if not Bernie, I hope it's Elizabeth. If it's not either one of them, I think we're really screwed.
Well, we are. I mean, and actually, I think even if it is Elizabeth Warren, and this isn't about my opinion about her, because the truth is I would vote for her. I don't think of her like, she wouldn't even really be a lesser of the evil situation for me. I
think
agree.
She'd be good.
I mean, she's not my pick, but I don't really have a problem with her. But I do not think that she can beat Trump.
That's interesting.
And that, I just don't think she can. I don't think she'll get the support. I don't think she has the support. I think the only person who's going to beat a populist on the right is a populist on the left.
I agree with you. And I think she's there. And frankly, I think hopefully it won't come to that. I'd love to see Bernie get the nomination. I just know how the Democratic Party works, as it seems you do too. And so I'm not holding my breath. And that's why I think we can't kill her off. She's our next best bet. Anyway.
Yeah, and I don't have anything bad to say about Warren. I don't think she has the capability of fighting for her policies in the same way that Bernie would if he were elected. I just don't think she inspires the same kind of following that Bernie does. I mean, there's a reason he has more than 1 million volunteers. And that's not something that is what shows support for a candidate. You can look at the polls, but that's not, when you look at an arena or a stadium and it's filled with people that are chanting Bernie, that speaks more than a poll.
Right. No, and
Elizabeth Warren doesn't come close is the thing in terms of getting that kind of draw.
True. But next to the other Democrats who are vying for the nomination, she's on another level.
For sure.
So
absolutely.
I think
Trump will have his way with any of them besides Bernie.
Yeah, I think she can hold her own. I hope. But hopefully, we'll see when we get to that.
I'll be cautiously optimistic.
Okay, there you go. Jen Perlman is with us. Again, she's on Twitter at JenFL23 for Florida's 23rd District. She is challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz in a primary. Please, 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 please. On the website, gen2020.com, again, you have the platform. Healthcare, you already said, single payer, Medicare for all. Here in Florida, we're a long way off from that, and boy, do we need it. Obviously, in Florida, climate change is a big issue, and in the state of Florida, in the Florida legislature, in the cabinet, you're not allowed to use the words climate change. At least you weren't under Rick Scott. Do you know if that's changed under DeSantis?
I haven't heard him put out like a specific, edict out there that you can't use the term climate crisis. And actually, my understanding is we've been pleasantly surprised by him regarding climate.
Okay.
Since he's been, but remember, we have a very low bar.
Yes, we do.
It doesn't take much for us to be pleased here in Florida with governance. So, Ron DeSantis, he actually came in and very early on sort of stood on the right side regarding protecting the Everglades. And so, he has not been on the wrong side in cases since so far, so good. But again, low bar.
Absolutely.
Very, very low bar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do see in the section on their website under environment, and you talk about supporting a Green New Deal. Thank you for that. And the last thing on there, you wrote investing in a solar initiative in Florida as well as nationwide for economic benefit and environmental protection. This is one of the reasons I call our state Florida, because it's the sunshine state and we don't have solar power here. It's insane.
Nope. And none of the congressional leaders take that on as an issue.
Right.
It's not so much as their voting record on the issue. Some of them have better than others, but it's the fact that nobody's taking the initiative on this. Like, wouldn't you think that the people from the state that will be first underwater might be speaking out loudest on climate crisis?
Mm-hmm. You would think.
That's what I would think,
you would think.
But that's not what's happening.
I'm going down to Miami Beach tonight. We're going to see Randy Rainbow, who's at the Fillmore. But Miami Beach, even on sunny days at high tide, the streets flood. I'm glad I wasn't down there a week or two ago during what they call the king tide, when it was way high tide, because the streets flood. Water comes up through the storm drains. It's a problem, and yet they're still building high rises along the beach.
Yes, they don't stop. I don't understand, because I wouldn't think that people wouldn't even be able to get a 30-year mortgage anymore down there.
Of course. I guess maybe
I
they're all.
No, you're right. They just keep building and building and building, and the encroachment of the water. But people don't realize that the issue isn't as much. Yes, sea level rise coming up on the coast, but it isn't that. It's coming up under the limestone, and And what happens is the pressure from it pulls up underneath, and it turns our drinking water into salt water.
Yeah, oh God.
So it makes us have less and less fresh water.
Yep.
So people think of it in terms of, the rise on the coast and things and less beach, but it's more than that, because on the inland, we're going to have less and less drinking water.
Yes. And look, South Florida already screwed things up by they put in this canal system years and years ago to, I guess, for irrigation purposes that connects the Everglades with the ocean. The problem is, if I recall correctly, the Everglades is fresh water. The ocean is not. They're not supposed to come together, and it's been mismanaged from the get-go. So it's, again, Florida.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And somewhere, somehow, to me, my natural inclination is to think somewhere, someone along the line made money. Somehow, somebody got money, and that's why the system is the way it is.
I think you're very right. Her name is Jen Perlman. She's, again, challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida's 23rd District. The website is jen2020.com, where you can read all about her positions. But the bottom line is she's one of us. We're very progressive. My listeners and I, we're with you on just about everything you've written here. Real quick, you come from, again, a legal background. You've spent the last few years at home raising your kids. How do you transition from that kind of a life to going to Congress, where you have to deal with things like an insane president turning his back on our allies, the Kurds, and setting them up for genocide?
Yeah, that's crazy. Even though, yes, I'm coming from most recently being a practicing attorney, I have been involved in politics one way or another for as long as I can remember. Since before I was old enough to vote. So it's always been something that I've been interested in. And when I decided to go to law school, it's because I was working at the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, and I was just so into watching how the lobbyists were working over at the State House, and I would coordinate press conferences with the governor's office. And I just really was very interested in the policy side. And that's when I decided to go to law school, actually. So I went to law school with this concept of lobbying for nonprofit. You know, something I was dreaming I would be working with Barry Scheck at the Innocence Project
that would be
or something
nice.
like
Cool,
that.
Right? Good aspiration.
That's still the dream job.
I like
That's
that.
the dream job.
Yeah.
But it just sort of one thing led to another, and I ended up, you never go exactly where you think you might necessarily go, but it's not so out of character for me to be interested in doing policy. And I think the reality is what is appealing about me is that I don't want this as a career, and I actually see it as a term of service.
Do you believe
my job would be to get in there, do that for a few terms, and then hopefully train someone newer and younger and mentor them so that they could have that job.
Do you believe in term limits?
Oh, yeah, I definitely do. And what's interesting is that most the real progressives don't.
Right. Yeah,
They
that's
believe that the term limit is the election. And the truth is, I get that too. And if somebody, let's say Bernie Sanders, who wants to be a public servant and has that level of approval rating and wants to continue to serve their constituents, I don't really have a problem with that. However, I also do support the idea of term limits. So if it came up and the majority of my district supported it, I support it. I have no problem with it. I just think most people don't have the sense of themselves to stay true for as long and to keep that path without it becoming a self-serving career.
Right. And I appreciate you saying that. And one other thing you just said that I want to point out, because you said if the majority of my constituents believe in it, I love that you just said that, because so many, and I think Debbie is among them, elected officials, think I was elected because of my views and my constituents trust me to make those decisions on their behalf. What you said is, I represent my constituents and I'm here to enact their wants and wishes.
Yes.
I have that right?
Actually, if you look on my webpage, right before the policy statements, I write a letter to fellow constituents. And it basically, that's the whole explanation of the letter, is that I see this as a term of serving the majority of this district, and it's my job to educate and lobby for things that I think would be in the best interest of this district. But ultimately, you do what your constituents want you to do. That's the job. So that, and then I say, with that in mind, here are the policies that I support and that I think are in the best interest of the collective. I mean, that's the gist of my policy ideas.
Cool. Oh, I like it. Her name is Jen Perlman. The website is jen2020.com. Honestly, until last week when I was contacted, I didn't even realize you were running. So we need to get your name out there. People need to know that you're running, that Debbie has a challenger. Then again, our primary isn't until August of 2020?
Yep.
Okay.
So look, I filed and we're running and we're raising money. We haven't had an official quote unquote launch party. We're still just sort of getting, some seed money and stuff put together. But I've been getting some good feedback, and especially when I do interviews, and then I get, I'll get like a little boost and I'll get comments from people. Oh, I saw your interview on such and such. And so it's good. We're getting there.
Cool.
And then there's something that's happening in another week or so that will eventually be very public, but I'm not at liberty to say right now, that I actually think will really launch us quite far.
Okay. Well, please stay in touch. We are neighbors. I look forward to meeting you one of these days and hopefully getting Debbie Wasserman Schultz to go home. That would be
I actually wanted
ideal.
to tell you my mom's maiden name. My mom's maternal family is Sandler.
Oh, really?
Sandlers.
Are they from Boston?
No, Philly.
Okay.
But and now I hope there's a whole group of Sandlers in Tampa that are my cousins.
How interesting. Yeah, we're around. And I have a very small family, but my dad was from the Boston area, so we're probably not related. But who knows?
No.
You never know. Jen, it was great to meet you.
It's always sort of like Jewish geography.
Of course. We're everywhere. Yes, we are.
Yeah, we are.
Jen Perlman, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for stepping up to run, because that's what we need, is people who are willing to challenge these Washington establishment figures like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who we need to be rid of on the national level.
I say it's my privilege to lend my privilege.
Awesome.
That's what I say.
Thank you for that. It was great talking with you. I look forward to talking again soon.
Nice talking to you too.
All right. Take care. Thanks, Jen.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Well, she seemed nice, right? Jen Perlman. Follow her on Twitter at JenFL23. And again, her website is jen2020.com. I'll have to introduce her to Howie Klein. All right, and a little later, we'll get to hopefully our other congressional candidate. He's running against, Jason Butler is running against a Republican. It's a Republican-leaning district, but Howie Klein tells me it's getting more and more purple by the day. So hopefully, in the last 20 minutes or so of the program, we'll get to him. But there's a lot of news to cover, right? So let's do it. And all right, we'll do it live.
I read the news today, oh boy.
We'll do it live. Fucking thing.
Okay. All right,
We'll do
Bill.
it live.
I said I'd do it live. Bill, would you shut up
doing
already? Okay. I'm doing it live. Oh, man. Well, this happened today. Leaders from Germany, France, the United Kingdom, the European Parliament, and the United States joined together today to issue a damning statement condemning Donald Trump and Turkey for the ongoing atrocities in northern Syria. In the statement, the chairs of the foreign affairs committees from each governing body said they considered Turkey's recent incursion into Syria targeting the Kurdish people to be, quote, military aggression and a violation of international law. This is from the statement. It says, "We consider the abandonment of the Syrian Kurds to be wrong. The Syrian Democratic Forces, our partner in the global coalition, massively contributed to the successful yet unfinished fight against Daesh, ISIS, in Syria and incurred heavy losses by doing so. We deeply regret the decision of the President of the United States to withdraw American troops from northeastern Syria, which marks another landmark in the change of American foreign policy in the Near and Middle East. The turmoil caused by the Turkish offensive may contribute to a resurgence of Islamic terrorism and undermines years of effort and investment to bring stability and peace in this part of the world. Therefore, we hope the United States will take up its responsibility in Syria again." Now, again, let me tell you, remind you who I said at the beginning that was from. Leaders from Germany, France, the UK, the European Parliament, and the United States. Yes, our allies who Donald Trump constantly disses. He's like, I don't care about those people. I don't care about those allies. Who do I want to be friends with? Vlad the Impaler, Kim Jong-un, we fell in love, Duterte, because Trump loves that Duterte assassinates drug dealers, and Erdogan and people like that. It's sickening. And, to quote Mick Mulvaney,
Get over it.
yeah, get over it. That's what Mick Mulvaney said yesterday to reporters who were asking about the president and quid pro quo in his call to the Ukrainian president. He said, get over it. Now, Mick Mulvaney, in addition to he's Trump's errand boy. He was first, it was plucked out of the obscurity of his congressional seat by Trump. He was put in charge of the Office of Budget and Management, OMB, Management and Budget. Then they added on the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau because Trump wanted to neuter that Elizabeth Warren's agency that she got enacted. And then he was made acting chief of staff. Well, in an actual press conference yesterday, the first time that the White House briefing room was used in over 7 months, Mick Mulvaney acknowledged for the first time that the White House withheld $400 million in aid to Ukraine so the country could investigate Democrats. And then he added, quote, "It happens all the time." Yes, he admitted quid pro quo, and he did it out loud.
To be clear, what you just described is a quid pro quo. It is funding will not flow unless the investigation into the Democratic server happen as well.
We do that all the time. By the way, and this speaks to an important point, because I heard this yesterday, if you read the news reports and you believe them, what did McKinney say yesterday? That he was really upset with the political influence in foreign policy. That was one of the reasons he was so upset about this. And I have news for everybody. Get over it.
Get over it? Hey, Mulvaney, you...
Get over it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to use that from time to time. Although I like fuck you better, but, sometimes, whatever. Later in the day, as you suspected he would, Mulvaney attempted to walk back those comments, claiming that the media misconstrued what he said, which is really ridiculous if you think about it, because there's video that shows what he said. The statement he released, probably after a good yelling from Donald Trump, said, quote, "There was absolutely no quid pro quo between Ukrainian military and any aid and any investigation into the 2016 election. The president never told me to withhold any money until the Ukrainians did anything related to the server. The only reasons we were holding the money was because of concern about the lack of support from other nations and concerns over corruption."
Bullshit.
Oh, sorry. Where did that come from? Wow, my computer is talking back to us. So Mick Mulvaney lies, and the computer detects the lies and says,
bullshit.
I like that. Ooh, I didn't even pay extra for that. Anyway, so, yeah. Now, the press briefing was called not to talk about, quid pro quo and Trump soliciting help against his political opponent from a foreign power, which is just astounding when you put it into those words. No, it wasn't called for that reason. The press briefing was called to announce that Donald Trump would host the 2020 G7 summit at his Doral Golf Resort in Miami, which happens to be a clear violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. And this happens as Trump is already facing multiple lawsuits and congressional investigations into similar violations where he's profiting off the presidency. It is just so astounding. The chutzpah of this administration is just insane. Meanwhile, as Mulvaney was doing his song and dance here, Mike Pence was holding a press briefing at the U.S. Embassy in Turkey after he and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with the Turkish President Erdogan to announce victory in negotiating what they were calling a 5-day ceasefire. But it was actually a deal that gives Turkey exactly what they want: control over the land that the Kurds had called home for more than 5 years. And Trump then took a victory lap. He seemed to endorse the idea of genocide and just, again, pave the way for Turkey wiping out the Kurds.
On behalf of the United States, I want to thank Turkey. I want to thank all of the people that have gotten together and made this happen. This is an incredible outcome.
Oh,
so
God.
you have a 22-mile strip that for many, many years, Turkey, in all fairness, they've had a legitimate problem with it. They had terrorists. They had a lot of people in there that they couldn't have. They've suffered a lot of loss of lives also. And they had to have it cleaned out.
Oh, God.
But this is an incredible outcome.
They had to have it cleaned out? Is that what he said? They had to have it cleaned out. Times like this, we need Keith Olbermann and what did they call him? The worst person in the world?
Asshole.
Oh, he is an asshole. That is true. He's most definitely an asshole. Where's I have a song that I haven't played in a while. Oh my God, I can't find it. I wonder if I didn't. Oh, I do have it here. You know what? We haven't had a song for Donald Trump in a while. I know the fuck you song, but something more encompassing. And I've got a song coming on. Sing along.
I want to tell you a story about the brand new world's biggest asshole.
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 It's a brand new story about the brand new world's biggest asshole.
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 His name is
Donald fucking Trump.
and he's the new world's biggest asshole. Oh yeah.
Okay, sorry, I had to get that out of my system. So Donald Trump talks about Turkey had to have it cleaned out. He's talking about genocide. He's talking about ethnic cleansing. He's talking about removing the Kurds from the land that they've settled in and lived in for the last 5 years. Now, yesterday, we came on the air shortly after this all broke, and I played a clip of Richard Engel of NBC News explaining what was really going on, and I was afraid that he was the only one who was going to speak that kind of truth. Thankfully, he wasn't. For instance, after Donald Trump made those remarks, during Chopper Talk, where he said they had to have it cleaned out, Brooke Baldwin came on the air at CNN in shock.
All right. Where to begin? First, just starting with the Kurds. The president saying that the Kurds are very happy, that civilization is very happy. He just said, 24 hours ago, that there are no angels. And by our latest reporting, 150 to 160,000 of them have been displaced because of this decision he made after this phone conversation with President Erdogan of Turkey, number one. Number two, for him to come out and say, and I quote, "This is an amazing outcome." This is total spin. This is not a victory.
You think it is not a victory? Don't believe the bullshit.
Bullshit.
Don't believe it. This is gaslighting on every level. Donald Trump is telling you, oh, it's a victory. It was great. It's the Kurds are safer now than they ever were. No, that is complete and utter
Bullshit.
Thank you. Even Mitt Romney took to the Senate floor to counter Donald Trump's lies.
Assuming for the sake of understanding that getting out of endless wars was the logic for the decision, why would we take action so precipitously? Why would we not warn our ally, the Kurds, of what we're about to do? Why would we not give them time to also withdraw, or perhaps to dig in to defend themselves? Clearly, the Turks had a heads up because they were able to start bombing within mere hours. I simply don't understand why the administration did not explain in advance to Erdogan that it's unacceptable for Turkey to attack an American ally. Are we so weak and so inept diplomatically that Turkey forced the hand of the United States of America?
Turkey?
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 I believe that it's imperative that public hearings are held to answer these questions. And I hope the Senate is able to conduct those hearings next week.
Oh, I hope so. I certainly hope so. So last night, Donald Trump had another one of his Nuremberg rallies, this one in Dallas, Texas, where he went even further with his disgusting, sickening imagery.
We've all agreed on a pause or a ceasefire in the border region of Syria. And it was unconventional what I did.
Oh, fuck you.
Said, they're going to have to fight a little while. Sometimes you have to let them fight a little while.
What?
Then people find out how tough the fighting is. These guys know right up here. These guys know.
What?
Right? Sometimes you have to let them fight. It's like two kids in a lot. You got to let them fight, and then you pull them apart.
Like two kids in a lot, you have to let them fight, and then you pull them apart? Yeah, go! Fuck you very, very much. I'm trying to work off this bad mood that I'm in, but it just makes me really angry. Oh my God, what a fucking orange moron. By the way, that ceasefire, if it ever was in effect, it's already over. In fact, here's Griff Jenkins of all places, Fox.
Now, I've been on the phone with my source all night long, as recent as 10 minutes ago. He's 10 kilometers from that town, Ras Al Ain, you're looking at. He says, quote, the ceasefire is broken. He questions whether it was ever even enforced or attempted to do so. He is with an NGO. They've been trying to get trapped Kurds out of Ras Al Ain all night long, and they cannot. He makes a distinct point. He has not seen airstrikes in the last several hours, but Kurdish Syrian fighters have told the AP that they have seen shelling going on overnight. Now, that is very, very troubling. Kurds cannot retreat, my source says. Roads are blocked. This 5-day ceasefire that was supposed to give Kurds time to retreat. They cannot.
No, they can't. And even if they could, where the hell are they supposed to go? See, that's the point. And it's really sickening. The point where, we're going to give them a chance to retreat peacefully. Retreat to where? You're telling them to leave their homes. This is the land they've settled on. And they've been there for years, fighting ISIS by our side. In fact, we've been backing them up with air power and, manpower, a small group of soldiers. They've done the heavy lifting. They've lost 11,000 plus lives. They have tens of thousands of people injured. And Donald Trump says, they're happy now because they can retreat in safety. There's nowhere to retreat to. You're kicking them out of their homes. Donald Trump is clearing the way for Turkey to wipe out the Kurds, completely wipe them out. It's ethnic cleansing. It's genocide. It's war crimes. It's disgusting. And we can't let him get away with his gaslighting. So, oh, they're all so happy about it. No, they aren't. God. Okay. On to other news, because there's other things going on. There's an impeachment inquiry still happening. The U.S. ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, sat for a closed-door deposition yesterday for more than 9 hours. He came across as kind of a jerk when members of the media attempted to talk to him before his testimony. His opening statement was released to the public. I'm actually not really sure what he said. It sounds like he was trying to straddle the fence here. Some who were in the room, though, confirmed that Sondland corroborated much of the whistleblower's report. In other news, we started the show with Jonathan Pye. Let's turn the tables on the UK for a minute. The UK and the EU allegedly have struck a deal on Brexit, but it faces long odds of getting through Britain's parliament. Remember that Theresa May failed 3 times to get similar deals. Similar deals approved. Oh, my power just.
Where is he?
Oh no!
Where is
hold
who?
on.
Where is Harvey?
Harvey's not here. Hopefully we're still on the air. We just had a power surge. Oh, it looks like we're still on. Sorry about that. That was weird. Okay, so it's Florida. It's usual. Back to where I was. So Theresa May failed 3 times to get similar deals passed. They always went down. So we'll see. Some of the lawmakers say they won't vote for this deal because the issue of the Irish border remains a big sticking point for them. So we'll see. In other news, the GM strikers, almost 50,000 GM workers are on strike. I mentioned yesterday it looked like there was a tentative deal. Well, it's still a tentative deal, but the strikers will stay out on the picket lines for at least another week. The union has recommended that this tentative deal with GM be ratified, so they will vote on it soon. The deal would give workers higher pay, protect their health insurance coverage, and provide an easier path for temporary workers to obtain permanent status. But it won't save an assembly plant in Lordstown, Ohio, or 2 U.S. transmission plants either. So we'll see. Now, here's a couple other things that I wanted to share with you. And by the way, obviously, I blew through the time allotted for our interview with Jason Butler. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will tack it on, as I did yesterday with the Medicare for All interview. I hope you heard it, to today's podcast. Maybe we'll get to play it on the air next week. But for now, I want to get it out there. So my interview with Jason Butler, who's running for Congress as a Democrat in North Carolina's 2nd district that encompasses Raleigh and surrounding areas. I'll attach it to today's podcast, which you can download free of charge at NicoleSandler.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. As I mentioned yesterday, I'm not behind a paywall. I know what it's like to be hurting financially and not really be able to afford to spend $5 a month to listen to one particular podcast. So my show operates on listener donations. All I ask is that if you enjoy the show, you listen regularly, and you can afford it, please pitch in. If you can't afford it, take care of yourself first, okay? It's the honor system here. So on another line, something that I just read this morning about a potential strike, sorry, I got strike on the mind, about a potential impeachment trial in the Senate. Obviously, what happens is the House does their hearings first. They vote to impeach. That's basically the House part of it is the indictment, right? So the House does the grand jury. It gathers all the evidence, and they decide whether to charge the criminal, in this case Donald Trump, and refer it over for trial. The trial would happen in the Senate. Now, under current Senate rules, all senators must be in session Monday through Saturday, starting at around noon each day. Now, this trial could last several weeks. Bill Clinton's lasted 5 weeks. And it was about a blowjob in the Oval Office, really. What would happen is it's going to take several candidates off the campaign trail just about a month before the primaries begin. 6 senators are running for the Democratic nomination: Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, and Michael Bennet. I know you forgot about Michael Bennet. I did too. So that's just an interesting thing. Hey, one more thing, by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the story out of Turkey. That letter Donald Trump sent the other day that for whatever reason the White House released, thinking it was going to make Donald Trump look good? Did you see this letter? It was dated October 9th. It was addressed to His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of the Republic of Turkey, in Ankara. It's on official White House stationery, and it reads thusly. I have to do my best Donald Trump imitation. Dear Mr. President, let's work out a good deal. You don't want to be responsible for slaughtering thousands of people, and I don't want to be responsible for destroying the Turkish economy, and I will. I've already given you a little sample with respect to Pastor Brunson. I have worked hard to solve some of your problems. Don't let the world down. You can make a great deal. General Mazloum is willing to negotiate with you, and he is willing to make concessions that they would never have made in the past. And then this part, oh my God, he writes, I am confidentially enclosing a copy of his letter to me just received. So let me get this straight. Donald Trump, pains me to say this, the President of the United States, shared a confidential communication from, I'm guessing General Mazloum is with the Kurdish army. I'm guessing he's a Kurd. He shared a confidential correspondence between another global leader with their enemy, the president of Turkey. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, well, see, he's so trustworthy. And then he finishes up by saying, history will look upon you favorably if you get this done the right way and the humane way. Right, kill people humanely. It will look upon you forever as the devil if good things don't happen. Don't be a tough guy. Don't be a fool. I will call you later. Sincerely. And then his, EKG-looking signature. Now, here's the part I'm getting to. Erdogan had a news conference. And he told the reporters that the letter sent by Donald Trump telling him not to be a tough guy wasn't in line with diplomatic or political customs. He said they wouldn't forget the lack of respect. Quote, when the time comes necessary, steps will be taken, he said. Oh, boy. Yeah, Donald Trump, this is what happens when you sidle up to dictators. This is what happens when you move against our allies. You turn your backs on our allies to embrace dictators and authoritarians and despots and the evil in this world. You wonder why people call you Twitler? Because that's what you are, you piece of fucking shit. By the way, he is unhinged. We know he's unhinged. This report was on CNN earlier today. Just got to play this clip for you because it's mind-blowing. And it's about the meeting in the Oval Office that Nancy Pelosi stormed out of. You know, the picture we've all seen that is so now iconic. Nancy Pelosi has it as her Twitter cover photo. Donald Trump thought he could tweet it out and accuse Nancy Pelosi of having a meltdown after she said he melted down because that's all he does. He's the rubber glue candidate. I'm rubber, you're glue. Anything you say bounce off me and onto you because he's 10 years old. Sorry, that's an insult to 10-year-olds. Anyway, here's that CNN report about that meeting.
We've spoken to
Whoops, hold on.
Republican sources
Let me take this
in
down.
the room, and I'm told that they were alarmed at his demeanor. Quote, everyone left completely shaken, shell-shocked. He is not in control of himself it is all yelling and screaming. And I asked the source, who's been in many meetings with them, has it changed? Is it worse? Because every week we talk about, is it getting worse? And the source said,
it's getting
100%.
100%.
I asked, are you worried about his stability? And the source said yes. And the source went on to talk to other senior Republicans who were in the meeting. They were also shaken up. One used the word sickened. And also they got a sense of the Pentagon, the generals who were there. And they were very upset. And the same thing, that this goes beyond just a policy difference. They were concerned about his demeanor.
Oy, it is the 25th Amendment time. But that's an issue for next week. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I'll be back Tuesday. Maybe we'll do a Music Monday again on Monday, but I'll be back Tuesday. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend we're here. Have a great weekend, everyone. Go adopt a dog. That's what I do tomorrow. Okay, bye.